exclusive insight presentation of the UX Trend Report 2026. My name is Johannes Sopier. I'm organizer of the World Usability Congress. I'm the silly guy who does a lot of silly projects. So also this global trend report where we have included quantitative analysis and some qualitative articles. And I say at the beginning, I say thank you to Taito Design and Gerard Hugh. Okay, I hear my voice. Please mute. Who designed the report to the World Usability Congress, who every year promote the report, and to IAPUX, who do the quality proof of everything, so to professionalize everything. So thank you to our partners. At the end, the content I will go through. It's a really huge, great report about the trend survey, about leadership, about brain-computer interfaces, UX in 2030, UX work hurts, or the human-centered approach. So what we go through at the 26 trend report, and there's quantitative analysis, is a lot of data, of course. And one of these, will the nature of work in the experience and change over the course of the next 10 years? And 92% say yes. So we have to be flexible in the future, and we have to change our job descriptions maybe. And the business or the industry, which is mostly affected, will be healthcare. So to our article writers, say thank you to Anthony, Claudia and Clemens, Tan, Elizabeth and Xavier and Mel. And they all wrote a really interesting articles. And those who are here, thank you to joining for Clemens and Claudia, Elizabeth, Anthony and Xavier. Everyone is allowed to tell a little bit, that we don't spend too much time. And I will start with Xavier. So Xavier, thank you for writing the article together with Meltem, When UX Work Hurts. Tell us a little bit about the background, why you have concentrated on this topic and why it's so important for the future for the industry of UX.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me this opportunity. Both Meltem and I, we are coaches. We work with a lot of UXers around the world, supporting them in their careers. And one of the things that we have observed in the last couple of years is an increase in people complaining like suffering of burnout-like symptoms. And so we have set out into an adventure to try to understand what is happening in our fields and what are we seeing. So for the ones of you who are here, you might all know that the last couple of years have been particularly hard for tech workers, not for UX only, for people in tech in general, with the rise of AI, but also with the industry discovering this new way of handling their employees through like laying them off, and the job markets getting a lot tougher. So based on this, we have set out and said, okay, we need to understand what is happening in the field. Why are people stressed? Why are so many unhappy? And we interviewed people who have experienced burnout-like symptoms, like from like more mild to like really heavy. And then we did a large-scale survey with over 300 UX professionals globally to understand what is happening. And the results that came out of the study are summarized in this trend article. I'll just give you a glimpse into one of those insights, which has been particularly interesting. which is that most people that experience burnout are actually not saying that their burnout is because of workload. Like the typical classical stereotype perception of burnout is people who have worked too much and that's why they crack. And the factor of workload is only on the fourth spot. Like the much stronger factors are actually not related to workload. The top factor is insufficient support from the team or management. So being in a place where you have to do work, but nobody supports you and gives you what you need to actually be successful. The second factor is role ambiguity and conflicting expectations, which is something UXers have experienced always, but it has gotten worse compared to the past. So with the rise of AI and the expectations of everyone to be using AI to do God knows what, roles have become a lot more like nebulous, and it's harder for UXX to figure out what should they be doing, and different people have different expectations, and that leads to them cracking. And the third factor is everything around job security or job insecurity. Obviously, the layoffs, not being sure if one will be impacted next, or also everything that happens after layoffs if you are not impacted. Reorganizations, unclarity of priorities, of strategy, and all of that insecurity and the stress that is generated through these massive amount of reorgs is wearing people down. So that's one example. We extracted like 6 different key findings that describe a little bit the situation of UXers in the current workforce and why many are just getting ill because of the work. So if that interests you, I hope you get to read the article. And thanks again, Hannes, for giving me here the spot to talk about that.
Thanks for the small insight. At the end, I will give you the link to download the report for free, of course. And yeah, thanks, Xavier. Some more insights into the report, the findings for 2026. What's really interesting, the UX importance is growing every year, and we are now around 77%. But at the end, on the other side, the UX realization is really only at 46%. So we can say UX has arrived at C level rhetorically, but not structurally. So there is a huge gap. We all say it's important, but we don't do that much for it. Also, the data shows that we only the business and technology KPIs, we link them to the UX KPIs. Only 35% never will do link those KPIs or the UX KPIs to business KPIs. So that's a big problem. Also, in another view, AI has become really positive. It's becoming more important and more important. But at the end, the most people say the future skills are not AI. The future skills are business strategy, psychology, or governance. So AI automates execution, but not the responsibility. So what does that mean? At the end, there is becoming much more AI, but at the end, UX has to go more into the governance area, in the business strategy area, in the management area. So this is a thing what we're shifting, and what I also will show you much more in this report. Next, also Anthony wrote an article about when leadership isn't inclusive, UX breaks. Will you tell us a little bit about you and what you focus in your article?
Absolutely. I mean, really, this article kind of starts with a bit of a confession because I thought UX, having worked in this field for 10 years, was just all about the process. Like if we have a strong enough process, the output will be better designed, it'll have better experience features and all these sorts of things. So for over a decade, I just ignored leadership until one day when my mom bought a printer. Now, this printer was not like just any old printer. She wanted this printer because she wanted to print out a picture of her grandson, and this was going to be like the best thing in her entire life. And so she goes to the store and she buys herself a printer. She brings it back home. And of course, the bloody thing is so dysfunctionally designed that she just ends up picking it up and smashing it against the wall. Now, my mom's not a violent woman. She's very genteel. She comes from the southern part of the United States. She prides herself on her politeness. So it was absolutely bizarre to me that this would strike such a chord of anger and vitriol in her. And so I started to look into more and more around this issue of leadership and how that leadership contributes to just poor design. And that's when I started looking at this more specific issue of inclusive leadership. So last year I did a bit of data collection to try to explore this field a little bit more deeply. And I collected data in Ireland and in Norway to kind of look at what people's perceptions around inclusive leadership is all about. Because I saw this as kind of fundamental to UX outputs. If we want good UX outputs, we kind of have to have leadership that's inclusive. And what kept coming back and kept coming up in the data was this issue that inclusive leadership isn't experienced as rhetoric. Hannes, you just mentioned this in the data that you showed. A lot of this comes down to people talking the talk, but not walking the walk at the end of the day. People are experiencing inclusive leadership, and I know it might sound mundane, but they're experiencing it behaviorally. So they're experiencing it as a human-to-human interaction and connection between themselves and their leaders. And so these really basic foundational level leadership skills, things like, it's going to sound bizarrely simple, but listening, things like taking in different perspectives from people who have different views than, the leadership kind of demographic, can really empower not just the team, but then can empower the team, those downstream forces to provide greater UX outcomes and greater UX outputs. So even though I started off just thinking this was all about process, we just got to nail the process and somehow, some way, magically, really great UX comes out of it. I've changed and shifted my thinking entirely because that lesson, looking at my mom and this printer, the lesson that taught me was that leadership fundamentally is what's creating those capacities, what's creating those opportunities for great UX as an output. And I know we're probably looking all around us right now, and we're just not seeing that inclusive level of leadership from a lot of folks who are at the top level in those C-suite positions. But it's my belief that in the future, as we continue to push towards a more inclusive world, that we'll end up having more better UX outcomes at the end of the day. So that's just my 2 cents, though. I'm here in Vienna this week speaking at a big international conference called Zero Project at the United Nations. So I'm all fancied up because I just came from the UN. So thank you guys so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for your article, for your insights right now. And again, if you're interested in his insights, read and share the UX Trend Report after you know where to download. Okay, what's next? UX is becoming more and more important, consistently above 80% since 2019. And this year, it's the first time it becomes not so important, maybe only 77% it becomes more important. So there is a little bit of decrease where we don't know where it comes right now. Maybe the focus is much more on AI and a lot of different topics, or because UX has reached his level the last years. So we have it, so it's not so important anymore because it's still here. But what's the real, this is what we also have to find out. So how do you expect your company's experiences and budget change in the next year? So 43% say it stays a little bit the same. 25% says it slightly decreases. only 6% says it significantly increases. So it's also really interesting. And what skills, what we had at the beginning is really important. Business strategy, 57% psychology, and the third was, I don't know what the third was. But you will see it, it's on the screenshot from the trend report. You can see everything there. Design as a strategy versus reality. At the end, we say, and everyone says, design should be strategy, and design is really important, or UX design. But at the end, design as a strategy in companies only less than 25%. But at the end, we have to say in 2019, design was still predominantly a form-given thing for most companies. And now form-given is only also a little bit down 25%, and 54% is design as a process in the companies. So it's becoming better, and hopefully it will become better in the future. It's good for all of us. So do you believe experience design will become more popular in the next 10 years? Of course, it will become more popular, and it will. So we have a golden future at the end, because we're still not at the end. We have to do much more in our area. Next article, the human-centered approach. Claudia and Clemens, would you say a little bit about the article, what you say, what is the human-centered approach, and why you wrote about it?
Well, if I would know that, no, just kidding. So this is a step outside of the bubble. So we kind of avoid using now only the term UX, but mostly as a carrier wave thing. We write about the approach, so-called Industry 5.0, which is an initiative by the European Union that is looking into the deficits of Industry 4.0. What is Industry 4.0? That was all about digitalization, digital transformation, and smart factories, Internet of Things, connectivity, and well, digital twins, all that was opening the industrial and manufacturing and automation cycle for the revolution we call now Industry 4.0 or Industry 4.0. But what is all this when you want to create added value with digitalization, when you don't have this added value perceived by the people who are really using it? So Industry 4.0 has been launched by the European Union as a program to promote three major pillars that extend 4.0 to the next generation. The first pillar is human-centeredness. Yes, you heard right. It is part of Industry 5.0. Core value is human-centeredness. The second is resilience. The third one is sustainability. So these three pillars are pretty much what we understand as human-centered strategy. And that is becoming the kind of different factor to be able as an organization to cope with technology changes, digitalization, and also the challenges of new work. Because, demographics are showing that we have less and less people being trained workers. We have lots of new tools like AI, and also collaboration between machine, robots, and men and humans. So this is kind of really the challenge. Every organization has to understand what resilience means, and the human-centered approach, which is a holistic approach that addresses resilience, error robustness, understanding of the context, to provide real value to the user, who really then has to perceive that value in order to make something happen that it really increases loyalty and also satisfaction in the process, and therefore profitability and also the market impact. This is also in the eye of the initiative. This is the business approach. We always try to achieve, we have to speak the language of the business. Well, this is already there. We have to understand when we talk about the human-centered approach that results in a positive user experience, great usability, and of course, great productivity and effectiveness in the processes. This is a management decision. This is about management responsibilities and accountabilities. So, and all this is targeted in all and rooted in the international standards about the human-centered organization. It is part where we have, it chimes into the ISO strategy 2030, which talks about sustainability, a comprehensive, holistic understanding of sustainability, not only eco-friendly, zero carbon, whatever, really about life cycle aspects, equality and inclusiveness, all that. And we have many fragmented words out there, like UX, experience, usability, accessibility, eco-friendly, corporate, social, whatever. The programmatic approach is the human-centered approach of Industry 5.0. And we outlined some thoughts in our article and invite you to get curious about that.
Thank you so much. Any additional sentence, Claudia?
It's hard because I think already mentioned everything, but I think there are a lot of different how to say difficulties the industry, the companies face at the moment, and I think with the human in mind and the strategic planning and the holistic planning, and when it comes to the users, the customers, and the employees, will make them more robust and bring them to success in the future. So with everything we build and everything we we have to have the humans in mind, because they are in the business processes, they are in the development processes, and they are the users at the end. And without any humans, we don't have to produce anything.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'm also convinced that the human-centered approach for companies it's the future. So read the article. I'm really curious about your feedback on it. So now, I'm also talking to Elizabeth. But before I start to watching into the transparent bar, in the glass bar, what does all the data mean for the future? When we see data, UX becomes more and more a risk management discipline because AI is regulated, accessibility is more firmly anchored in law, ethical design becomes mandatory, UX reputation is monetized. So maybe UX become part of compliance, part of ESG, or part of the corporate governance. I'm convinced it should be. If we all work on it, then it will become of it. The bottleneck is shifting, where we in our profession have our thoughts on it. So previously, the bottleneck was the design skills. Now everyone learned Figma. We don't like the word Figma, but everyone learned Figma. Now we have the design skills. Today, the bottleneck is the strategic integration, that we have to work for it. And maybe, or in the future, the bottleneck will be the leadership or the decision quality, that the leadership will take the right decisions for a human-centered approach in the future. So we have to work on it. In the best case, we work in the parallel on it, that we go in the right direction. The third, of course, AI will decouple UX and recouple it. AI automates research synthesis, prototyping, writing, testing. So we will do so much in that area in the future. But this leaves judgment, ethics, prioritization, governance again in our side. So the role shifts from UX designer to experience architect or to experience governor. So it's also shifting. And we have to have this in mind, because the world is changing much faster than we hope and much faster than we can really follow the world, the technology. So we also had an article from a founder of the World Usability Day, and we are hopefully now working much closer together from pixels to possibilities. And this is a good part from what the whole world of our profession changes from pixels to possibilities. So, Elizabeth, what's your thought on that, and what can we expect out of your article?
Thank you for asking and for the opportunity. So I'll just start off with saying that my perspective comes from founding World Usability Day over 20 years ago, and happy to be involved with any organization that has usability as its sort of northern star. Back then, and I'll even say I've been doing this for over 3 decades, usability was always, can we use it? Is it good for the planet? You know, and then we've evolved into all these other things. So bringing us back to usability, I think about, you know, what's important and sort of where are we going. So one of the things is writing this book series, Usability for the World, and thinking about, our first one is about cities, and then we're looking at education and healthcare. As you know, what does it mean to have a usable city, right? What does it mean to have a usable healthcare system for everyone all around the world? We're also doing a World Usability Education Project to think about how education is being done around the world and what's common. And if we take out all these different layers of countries and, you know, cultures, like what's the core that we can share? And that's usability to me. And then the other piece before I launch into the future is second edition of my book, Successful User Experience Strategies and Roadmaps. So it's always been about strategy. That's what usability is, right? But as we've developed, it's great to see how we're gaining. It's great to see the numbers, Hans. But in some ways, it's not any different than it's been. We've always been trying to get people to understand how important this is. And so at this point, with AI, sort of, is it taking over? Is it not? How can we use it to move us forward? So one of the things that I've been focusing on is the scaling of ethical AI and scaling of UX, right? Because for those of you who have done any kind of future thinking, you can know that it's really just like thinking about the best possible case in any usability problem, right? Like what would the best solution be? And then walk us back to how can we get there, right? So if I think about AI, and I've been using it since, by the way, when I worked at Kodak, like I said, 3 decades ago, we were using AI to create something that turned into iPhoto. Kodak blew up, but Apple bought it, and now it's iPhoto. And what is it? It's like, oh, I took a picture in this location in the world. Why can't I just look at a map and find it, right? That's what we were doing then. Well, that's AI, actually. But it's not what we're doing now with large language models. So the large language models and all this Gen AI is changing things. People can make pictures, right, without having any art school background. So how do we merge that? And by the way, I hate to say it, but layoffs aren't new. I was laid off from my first job when I was pregnant with my son, who was over 3 decades old. So there you go. It's kind of like everything old is new again, but not necessarily. We're in a better position than we ever were. First of all, we have each other, and we're talking about important things all around the world. So what can we do to move forward? I think the idea is to focus on the human in the loop system, right? And I write a little bit about that in the article, and I'm doing a lot more speaking and talking about that. But the idea with the humans in the loop is that we can still we can't fight AI, right? Like that's not, the ship has sailed, as we say. So how can we use it? Well, we can help a little bit of ideation, but then check your sources, right? We can use AI and then check the AI, right? Is it hallucinating? Does this make sense? Maybe it can unblock something that we have to help us move forward, but then we still have to iterate and we still have to get feedback from users, and none of that has changed. I think that AI is changing how work is being done. And I remember when there were other waves of layoffs, we didn't have the programmers laid off with us. So that's something interesting to look forward to, not like happily look forward, like thinking about that it's happening. And then what can we do? How can we work with it? So again, like as a community, talking to each other, thinking about what problems we're working on, and then and then trying to share knowledge, not be so siloed. Finally, the piece about governance is in the wheelhouse of World Usability Day, right? Because that's what we were trying to do. We're still trying to do is get more governance around how we use usability, user experience, human-centered design, and humans in the loop. So I can think of 2 examples in the United States that actually have worked. So voting machines were unregulated until the general election of 2000, in which George Bush won, it was like about 500 votes in Florida over Al Gore. And why did that happen? Well, it turned out it was a design problem. It was 100% a design problem with the ballot. And if you read my book, it's in there, and I can tell you more about it. But what happened is, because of that simple design problem, it confused the whole voting system. And then people like the Supreme Court, who didn't really understand design but were thinking about a different aspect, weighed in on it, and history was made. And so now the United States passed the Help America Vote Act in 2002, and it regulates voting machines have to go through very rigorous human factors testing, which include user experience. So the other one that has come through in the United States is medical devices. And the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, has also regulated that any medical device used by a human that touches a human anywhere has to go through human factors and usability testing. And they say usability testing. So that's the kind of regulations that I think will help us moving forward. And we have to be creative and think about, well, what kinds of things like that can we do with AI? And then how does AI, help us? And then balance out with the ethics by the human in the loop. Learn more about that by reading the article, also my book. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you about it.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And of course, if you want to meet her in person, join the World Usability Congress in October in Graz. Some more words a little bit later. But now the future question at the end out of the data is not, is UX important? The more important question is, who is accountable for it? And who really has to look at it? So the UX keywords from 19 to 21, it was about vision. 22 to 25, we talked about integration. 26 to 28, now we talk about accountability, and also in the next 2 years. The question is 29 to maybe 2035. What is the next big keyword after accountability? As I talked or told you, is it experience governance? Is it AI experience or liability? Or is the UX as an economic resilience function? So, yeah, that's the big question. We don't know. We will see it after the next 1, 2, 3 reports in the next years. So we will look at the data and we will see what's coming out at the end. Now I only can say this was a short eye catcher into the Global UX Trend Report. If you want to read everything, here's the link at the World Usability Congress UX Trend Report, or you can go through the navigation through World Usability Congress and then drop down into the UX Trend Report. It's the first Global UX Strategy and Management Conference. You can download the full conference. This year it will be more and more exciting because if you buy one ticket, you can visit 5 conferences. The Critical Operations Forum, Medical Science Talks, Fluid Human Systems Interaction Symposium, Value Management Summit. But of course, the most important is the World Usability Congress. If you buy a ticket for it, you can go to it and visit 3 to 5 4 tracks. So ask for approval today. Really important, and I only can say right now, accountability is the new battleground. Thank you for joining. Download the report and please share the report in the community. It's really, really important for all of us to become more important in the industry. Thanks you so much for coming, and see you next time. Clemens, you want to say something?
No, just if there are any questions or
Oh,
remarks or
yeah, of
insults
course.
from